Hello, friends, and welcome to the Friday Streamerino. I am your hostess, Lisa. How you doing out there? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Been a hot second. We took last week off. I've been having a lot of emotional roller coaster. I'm not a fan of real roller coasters, and I'm definitely not a fan of emotional roller coasters. But I've been up, I've been down. And that's life. That is life for you. I've got a really great article to read for the stream today. Care Bears. Care Bears care. Um, I don't normally read the articles ahead. Normally, I read them on the stream and react to them. But today, I have already read this article because I came across my um, consciousness or something, and I was like, "Oh, I have to read that." And then I felt I have to share that because it was just such a fascinating slice of life story. I related to it a lot, and just it's just a story about people, and I think it's really cool. And I think most of us have experienced some trauma in some degree or another, or been on the periphery, or know somebody who experienced trauma. And that's kind of what this article is dealing with. It's dealing with someone who personally was physically injured, and then, the people around him who related to the incident. So, hello, existential Lily, Julie, Nix. If you're out there lurking, say hello. We love to say hi to everybody. And I think we'll get into the article. Yes, I posted a video. My friend Eighth is always telling me to make long form videos. That's what the key to YouTube success. So I made one and I put it up, and it was about my experience returning to climbing after my accident. Hello, Carla. Um, so I had a climbing accident 9 years ago, and maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I had PTSD. I mean, I had actual PTSD, and it's like weird to say, people people go through wars and get PTSD. People are in serious car accidents, they get R worded, whatever. Like there's so many very, very serious things that happen. And sometimes people go through those experiences and don't develop PTSD, which to me is totally wild. And I had this experience where I saw my partner fall off the cliff, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. And only by a miracle, it's a very confusing situation to try to describe, especially to non climbers, but um, by a miracle, she stopped and she didn't actually hit the ground. And she walked away with not a broken ankle, a sprained ankle, relatively harmed. She was able to walk away from this situation. But in that moment, see, I can't even talk about this without starting to get like heart palpitations and stuff. But in that moment, I really believed I was seeing someone die. And I think they say that's a, precursor to developing PTSD is believing you're in a life-threatening situation or you're witnessing someone else in a life-threatening situation. And, that experience really impacted me. It totally changed my relationship to climbing. The rest of that season, I, um, I just really, really struggled. Existential says PTSD often doesn't make sense. I had a coworker once who had PTSD about her daughter's cancer and remission now, but the trigger was hearing a helicopter of all things. Like the sound of a helicopter took her back to that night her daughter was life flighted and diagnosed. So I actually just got chills reading that because I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes it's like one really specific thing that just imprints on your brain, and that is what triggers you. So for me with this situation, I tried to get right back on the horse. I actually went climbing again later that day, and I was, like, disassociating basically, and then for the rest of that season, I tried to climb, and I was having these episodes of just crying, you know, meltdowns basically. I just mentally couldn't do it, and climbers will tell you this, climbing is something that climbers do as a meditation, like, it's something that you can do to just be so calm. Climbing has nothing to do with, like, an adrenaline rush or anything. If you're feeling adrenaline, you're doing it wrong. It's something where you just feel the deepest sense of calm and serenity and peacefulness, and so to feel stressed when doing it was really, really horrible situation. So then after that, the next year I actually got sick. I got an illness. So it was like sort of a good excuse to just like walk away from it. And I didn't climb. I climbed a little tiny bit here and there in the gym. And then for 4 years, I didn't climb at all, just took 4 years totally off. And I just started again last year climbing in the bouldering gym, and then 2 days ago, I got on a rope for the first time, and I was medicated. I took some anti-anxiety medication, which I think really helped amazingly, and, but I was able to climb, about 15, 20 feet up, which is higher than I go bouldering, and trust my partner to hold my weight and not drop me, which is what the story we're gonna read today is about. And it's like this story should probably be triggering to me, but I don't know. I just feel like it's all part of the therapeutic process too, to like get get this stuff out. That's what I've been going to therapy, and I really feel like they say with PTSD, people who have it, they avoid it's like about avoidance. You want to avoid thinking about those thoughts ever. And what that does is they just kind of build up, I really think. I think it's like lancing a boil or something. It's like, you know, getting that festering stuff out, and I don't think to me, n avoiding it and not talking about it hasn't helped me at all, so I wanna start addressing it, talking about it, and engaging with some of the things that I have come to fear, which is, like, rope climbing. Um, so we'll get into it. If you are new to the Friday stream, welcome. I'm Lisa. It's great to have you here. The way this stream works is we read an article together. That is, I read it to you. We try to learn something, gain a new perspective on life, and I love it when you guys comment as we go, and I will stop and comment as we go. That's the format of this. So don't hold your comments to the end. As we go, make sure you just chime in, whatever you have to say. As climbing might be new to some of you guys, but I do feel like the story is relatable on a lot of levels. It's a very like humanistic story, and it's very well written as well. So let's see, I gotta do this, and then I gotta do this. Whoops, that's not what I wanna do. I wanna do this. Okay. Well, I hope you guys are all having a great Friday too, by the way. Don't forget to hydrate. That's what I'm doing. And we'll get into the article. Great. So the article is titled The Rocky Emotional Aftermath of My Gym Climbing Accident. What an interesting thing for Climbing Magazine to highlight. A lot of people don't think of gym climbing as real climbing. People see gym climbing as just something you do in between outside climbs. And, and also, people don't really think of gym climbing as dangerous, right? What can go wrong in the gym? But climbing is dangerous. Gravity always wins. As soon as you get off the ground, you are fighting gravity, and it's always ready and lurking there. A stranger he met at the gym dropped him to the ground. In the aftermath, the author had to relearn how to climb and to trust. So that was something I talked about in the video I just made and put up. It's all about trust. In order to stay in that calm mindset, you have to take a lot of stuff for granted. You have to trust your partner and you can't be thinking about your partner when you are climbing. You can't be thinking about your rope when you're climbing or your knot or the belay device or any of these things. Like you just have to be trusting that this whole system is in place to keep you safe so you can just focus just on the wall. But this for me has been the biggest thing in the aftermath of my own climbing accident was learning how to trust myself again, learning how to trust my own judgment and learning how to trust other people, which I am still really working on doing. The person I climbed with the other day, we've been friends for 9 years. We've been climbing partners before and I've climbed with him and not trusted him before, um, just because of my own mental drama, not because of him. But, I used to just climb with anybody, and that was the person that I climbed with when we had the accident was just someone I had climbed with 2 times, and she was just like we weren't really friends. She was just like pick up a partner. And I don't think I would have that attitude about it in the future. Um, Radybugs, cute name, and Gravy Over Potatoes, welcome to the stream. Gravy says, injury memory can change your whole life. I grew up in a wood shop around heavy machinery for decades. One cut thumb, and now I don't woodwork ever again. Haha, cold turkey. I actually had the same experience with cycling. I used to cycle all the time. I had one crash and I just stopped. So I totally get that. It's like something that is part of your everyday life, and then you have one accident, um, and you're just like, oh, nope, you know? Climbing partner relationships must be pretty close sometimes, yes, and it is the kind of thing that you can meet somebody once and you're immediately trusting them with your life. That happens all the time in climbing. People meet strangers and within 5 minutes they're trusting them with their life. It's very wild, but it can also develop these like very close, sometimes lifelong bonds just from meeting somebody and climbing with them once. Existential says, I honestly don't know if I could do that, completely let go and trust. Introspection moment. Yeah, that's you know, it's amazing. It really, really is amazing to get in that headspace of you're like, I believe in this person will not hurt me unintentionally or intentionally. If you have a little paranoia like I do, um, yes, just to let go and trust. I went rock climbing on a school trip. The tethered walls were scary. I prefer the boulder walls. Yes, I prefer bouldering now too, although a lot of people say bouldering is more dangerous, but I feel like you have more control over your own self. And I think through bouldering, I've learned to trust my own judgment. That was something in my own accident. I didn't trust myself anymore. I didn't trust my ability to judge people or situations that I always felt I could trust myself. Hey, Jessica, great to see you. Um, it makes you acutely aware of your own mortality having that one incident. Yeah, exactly. Whether it's cutting your thumb in a wood shop, falling off your bike, seeing someone almost fall off a cliff. Um, it's like, oh, yes, we are mortal, you know? For me, it was less scary when the lady was holding the rope rather than the mechanical one. Okay, yes, I totally agree. I don't like they call it an auto belay. I don't trust that even though they say it's like very safe. I would much rather have a person do it, but then I have trouble trusting people too. Okay, so it's all about trust. So let's learn about what happened to this guy, Chris Carithers. I worked through the final roof moves, then reached to pull up the rope to clip the anchors. So for you non-climbers out there, you can imagine the sky is at the top of the wall in the gym. It's probably about 40 feet up. Usually gyms are 30, 40, 50 feet. Um, so he's at the top, he's clipping to the anchor. I looked down at the stranger who was belaying me, and my heart pounded. Beginning to panic, I released the slack I had pulled up and yelled, "Take, take, take," which is what climbers say when they want the belayer to take in the slack and hold the climber's weight. So the way climbing works, for those of you who are not climbers, is when you're up on the wall, and you can see it in the video that I just posted because you can see it all in there. But when you're climbing up the wall, you have a belayer who's on the bottom who's holding the rope. The rope is going up through the top or up through gear, and they can hold your weight and lower you safely, right? So that's what climbers say, take, when they want to feel their belayer holding their weight. He stood motionless, staring blankly, imploring for a translation. He had backed 20 feet away from the wall and looked at me and then at his hands and the gree between them with confusion. He did nothing to bring in the ominous arc of limp rope between himself and my first quick draw. If I hadn't spent the morning feverishly running laps on different auto belays throughout the gym, I might have had the strength to save myself. Instead, my arms shook violently as if I was holding on to a jackhammer. I made a quick, crude calculation thinking the gree would automatically catch me just before I hit the ground. I let go. I hit the floor violently. On impact, my back gave way, my ribs ricocheted off my pelvis, and my head bounced, clapping silent the hum of the gym. On the padded blue floor, I listened as a ringing din grew in my head with urgent voices yelling for help. Horrifying. Absolutely. Almost unimaginable, right? I felt hands stabilizing my head and hips and someone softly taking hold of my hand. The stranger hovered just out of sight. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Then a friend of mine who worked at the gym told him to back away. So, very intense start to this. If you guys don't know what a gree is, I show and tell here. This is a gree. Basically, the I'm like good angle here. The rope goes through this device, goes through the top of the device, and it creates like a kink in the rope so that the person holding the rope has tension, and not only that, but it's auto locking. So it's like a seat belt that if you fall, it will just catch, right? So you need a person to like work it. But it has some autonomous feature there. So this is the belay device I prefer. That, as you can see, it's totally open. It doesn't have any mechanical thing. This is called a ATC or a reverso, and this just requires your partner to do all the work. So this will not save you if you fall. This and your partner's like not paying attention. This will, except it didn't in this situation. So we have to read about why that happened. Earlier that year, so let's get some context on this. Again, feel free to comment and react. I know probably most people here are not climbers, so if you have any questions too, you can ask me to clarify, like, what does that mean? Because some of it is in technical climbing language. Earlier that year, while I walked with a friend in the August heat below Settlers Park, a distraught woman flagged us down, telling us that help was needed on a nearby trail. We raced towards a panicked kid. In an amphitheater of rock just above the bustle of my whole hometown of Boulder, Colorado, I just stood and stared. The kid paced back and forth, asking, "Is he dead?" Ooh, got chills. I mistakenly thought that I was going to be a first responder, but there was nothing to be done. The man's skin had gone blue, starkly contrasting with the bright red cone of blood suspended from his nose and mouth. This is very intense. The flies had already found him. I visualized him there crawling to die and thought maybe he'd fallen from the rocks above or maybe he'd been attacked. I thought of his family, the last thoughts he might have had. Something cold and soulless settled within me like dark ash. There was nothing we could do for him. I really love this writing. I mean, this is obviously like a totally insane, like this alone to experience this, it's definitely traumatizing, right? Um, Giving this some context, like this guy has already experienced this trauma of coming across a dead body when he's out on the trail, and now he's having his own accident. The paramedics carried me out over the February snow, and in the ambulance, my left big toe felt as if someone had just cut it with a scalpel. I couldn't see it because my neck was braced and my forehead was taped to the board beneath me. I thought of my wife, Monica. I wanted to call her and reassure her I would be okay. I wanted to see her face. I wanted to hold my children's hands. The paramedics kept asking if I wanted anything for the pain, but I felt that without drugs, I could keep an eye on my toe and on the hollow, nauseating feeling in my back. A cold hand had crept under the back of my skull. I kept wiggling my toes and fingers and tried to remember the paramedics' names. I was in pain, I was afraid, and that same sick, helpless feeling I had staring at the dead man months before crept back in. So this trauma brought back that other trauma. Jessica says, I don't know much about climbing, but the writing has really evocative descriptions. Yeah, I thought this was such a beautifully written piece, for real. In the emergency room, the doctors and nurses kept repeating that I was lucky to be alive. I probably would have been paralyzed had it not been for the thick padding on the gym floor. My wife arrived at the hospital between the CAT scan and the MRI, and when I finally saw her, I gave in to the fear I'd kept rigidly in check. We were told that I had fractured my back at T12, broken a transverse process, herniated 3 discs, and rung my bell pretty good. I would need to spend a few nights upstairs to get checked out by a neurologist. The doctors also needed to figure out the sensation in my toe to see if the nerves connected to T12 were in any way affected, which could result in lifelong incontinence and impotence. Months later, I realized that I'd also cracked a molar and ripped up the cartilage in both knees. The first night in the hospital, I woke up 3 times soaked through with sweat, my heart thundering and my chest heaving. Every time I dozed off, the suddenness of the fall returned. I clicked for another drip of morphine. I clicked it all night long, staring at the clock, waiting for the next 15-minute window when the machine would release the clear liquid through the line and into my arm. The ticking and breathing of the machinery above me kept me from sleep, as did the haunting image of the swarthy stranger who had approached me looking for a climbing partner. I saw the thick shadow of his beard, his quiet, watery eyes, and heard the way the words um, formed in the back of his mouth, half swallowed. So what an experience, yeah, like, you've just gone through this horrible physical trauma, you're in the hospital, it's not a restful environment at all, but you are surviving. It's terrifying. Carla says it's terrifying how mortal our bodies are to just simple falls. Truly, right? It's something we always have to be really mindful of, and especially, like, I live with 2 elderly people, I'm so mindful of even just a fall from standing height, can be really dangerous, let alone, falling 30, 40 feet, even onto a padded floor, you know? Existential says, "I'm angry at that guy who didn't do anything, but maybe we'll find out more information later." Yes, that is definitely what the article is about. I told you it's a very human story. It's about the relationship between these 2 people in this trauma. Lily says, "Your whole life can change in an instant." That's so true. Jessica says, "Hospital is rarely restful. I think I spent at least a week getting very little sleep during a particularly long stay." Well, I hope you're doing better now, but yeah, and it's amazing too, like, I feel like that should actually be a focus of medicine is, making hospitals more restful because it's through rest that your body repairs itself, and so if you're constantly, like, not able to, rest, it's gonna be very hard to recover from, and I think that's one reason they want you to go home pretty soon as soon as you can, is because home is just much more restful. There's not a lot of commotion and beeping and all that kind of stuff. Existential says people have died falling onto their front stoop or in their bathtub. Absolutely. Can be very dangerous for sure. So how did he feel about this man who was a stranger who changed his life forever and then kind of disappeared, right? This is really fascinating to me. Like I said, in the accident I have, I did not know the the woman who was the person who was the victim in our accident. Um, I didn't know her well at all. Well, we weren't strangers. We had climbed together one other time, but like I said, sometimes with climbing, you're hooking up with people that you don't know well, and you're putting all your trust of your life in them. Jessica says 2019 was my health low point. I'm doing well now. I'm very glad to hear that. Existential says hospital is terrible. My longest stay was 3 days after my C-section. It sucks. Yeah, you just can't wait to get home. I didn't feel any particular ill will toward him. Mistakes happen, but he hadn't called. He hadn't come to the hospital. He hadn't contacted the gym to see if I was okay. For all I knew, once I was backboarded and loaded onto the ambulance and the clamor of the accident subsided, he shoved his gear in his pack and vanished. As I lay there ruminating, the injustice began to eat away at me. It did not seem right that my family should suffer the cost of his mistake. Also, it sure felt like a hit and run. I became hell bent on tracking him down. So definitely a lot of like mixed kind of emotions here, right? Like I didn't feel any particular ill will towards him, but I felt like I had been in a hit and run. Accidents happen. Even extremely experienced climbers have accidents, and especially in the alpine, they die. I mean, the most experienced high level alpinist, it's got like a 50% mortality rate or something like when you talk about high altitude mountaineering and stuff like that. Obviously, gym climbing is like much, much, much safer, but still experienced people have accidents and you have to realize that accidents happen and it's part of everything. Like existential, what did you say? People die falling on their front stoop or in their bathtub. You're probably more likely to get into a car accident on the way to the climbing gym than actually have an accident at the climbing gym. But yeah, existential says I can definitely see that guy not wanting to show his face. And I haven't talked about the particulars of the accident I had, but I wasn't 100% responsible, but I felt somewhat responsible, and I felt so much shame and embarrassment and guilt and everything over what happened in my accident. So I understand, just it's like you want to crawl under a rock and vanish and disappear. And like I said, the accident I have, the girl who was injured sprained her ankle, but again, she was free falling off the side of a cliff only by a miracle. It's again hard to explain, but she survived and was relatively unhurt. But Yeah, in that situation, I felt so much guilt, and in this situation, this guy actually really changed this guy's life and hurt him and put him in the hospital, but he broke his back, all of this stuff, you know? I dozed off and woke to my phone buzzing with a message from Monica. Hi, babe. Thought about you all night. Barely slept. I miss you so much. Are you up? Woke up missing you. Love you. 3:44 a.m. As I lay there immobilized and hooked up to a tangle of wires, I tried to make sense of my mistake. So he takes some responsibility too, you know? I never climbed with strangers. I only trusted a handful of old friends as my partners. Of course, there were exceptions. I once hooked up with Jimmy Chin to climb Half Dome. Flex there, little name drop. Um, Jimmy Chin is the filmmaker who made that film Free Solo, that Alex Honnold climbing up in Yosemite. Maybe some of you guys have seen that, but so this guy was like the writer. He was real, right? Like he's climbing Half Dome with Jimmy Chin. He's experienced. He knows what he's doing, and he took some of the blame for this accident happening. Primarily, I climbed with people I felt deeply connected to, otherwise preferring to climb alone. Same, now. But I had just returned from the Deep South with my students to study the civil rights movement and had been struck by the warmth with which we were received. There had been hugs and handshakes like those from family. I came home intent to opening up myself up more to others. So I had accepted the stranger's offer to climb. Now I couldn't even remember his name. Bananas says, "This is why I'm afraid of driving. You can do everything right on your end, but ultimately have no control over other people's mistakes." I think it's like the idea that we're really not in control over much is something that is, to me, that's like a lifelong thing to grapple with. You know, I think a lot of people turn to religion or the concept of God or something to say that everything happens for a reason. So we don't have to be in control because God is in control or whatever. But to really realize that, yeah, you are not in control of much at all. You're kind of in control of how you react to things and you're kind of in control on how you interpret things. But there's so much that's out of our control. And I think, some philosophies, it's like letting go of that idea that I need to be in control of everything is very freeing and relaxing. And that's the way. Before becoming a teacher, I worked as the Outward Bound Wilderness Safety and Training Director. So it's often people who, man, yeah, that's pretty wild, right? This guy was a safety and training director for Outward Bound. Like, you wouldn't expect an accident to happen to this guy. Looking critically at incidents to determine the root causes and then implement policies and procedures to avoid future accidents. So he's like the NTSB of Outward Bound, doing analysis of what happened, how can we change it, and you know so for an accident to happen to this guy, that's what I'm saying is like, I think it helps me to read this because I always saw myself as a very safe climber and I did everything the guide's way and by the book. And I've done like an AMGA course and stuff. And uh, my partners were always like, wow, you're really safe and stuff. And then so when I was involved in an accident, I was like, it shook my thinking about who I actually am. Like it messed with my identity because I saw myself as a, you know, a very safe climber. And like this guy must have said, I'm a safe climber. Anyone who would climb with him would be like, this is a great guy to climb with. He's got to be safe. And yet he was involved in an accident. Banana says it's like realizing you're not the main character and you don't have plot armor. True, right? Yeah, it's realizing we're all NPCs, just out here. Lily's saying this really makes me think about risk taking versus living in fear. If you let the fear of what if take over, you'd never leave your house. Oh my god, I just got chills, thank you for saying that. I've been thinking about this so much because I do personally feel like I've had these incidents that instilled fear in me, and I've created this, like, cocoon of safety, and going out a couple days ago to climb and, like, face my fear, I have not felt so liberated, I can't even tell you since when. Like, I was just like, what have I been doing? I've been creating a prison of fear and of what ifs for myself. And yeah, it's living in fear is not good. I totally agree. I totally agree. I knew what had happened. I had no misconceptions. I had misassessed. Okay. Same thing in the situation I was in. I had misassessed. He answered yes to all of my questions, told me he knew how to belay, but there were signs. He had forgotten his belay device. His harness was too new. He was short roping me at some of the clips, and each time I looked down, he was standing farther from the wall. I remember that when I let go from the top of the climb, there was a brief hiccup in the fall, which must have been the Gree auto locking before releasing. He must have thought the lever on the Gree was the brake and so yarded on it and tried to stop my fall. So again, like I said with the Gree, um, so this is what it is. It has this lever on it, um, and that's how you control whether the person is stopped or whether you're letting them um, descend. So you have to know how to use it. It will save a person's life if you know how to use it. But yeah. Oh, Lily says, love seeing that vid. You look like you were in your element. Thank you so much. Existential says there's a healthy balance between being cautious and sensible and being fearful. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to do that risk assessment, but you can't and you might not get it right every time. That's the reality, you know, but the alternative is to be wrapped someone once described it to me as being wrapped in cotton wool, you know, like are you going to go out and you're going to go, you know, do the thing and live your life or are you going to what kind of life? You want to get to be 80, 90 years old and you've never gotten a bruise, you've never gotten a scrape, you know, you haven't done anything? I don't want that to be my life, but then there's risks, you know, you try to minimize them, but then there's risks. By the time the light faded from my hospital room window on the second day, our community had rallied. This is what I love about the climbing world. Friends from different sides of my life started overlapping at the edge of my bed. How cool. Without hesitation, they had put the brakes on their lives in order to be with us. Their response made me feel ashamed by all the time I'd spent pursuing adventure or training to get stronger. It all seemed like a pathetic waste. I should have been showing up more for my friends. In that moment, my tireless pursuit of climbing seemed so self indulgent and devoid of meaning, and I was disgusted by my gluttony. So, uh, I think it's just so beautifully written and just real steep self-reflection. You know, unfortunately, it took this horrible accident for this guy to have this self-reflection, but what a turnaround of thinking. I really like that. The second night, the panic attacks continued. I couldn't sleep without the fall returning. So that is the genesis of PTSD is replaying this event over and over. The doctors prescribed Xanax, and my wife encouraged therapy. I thought of other falls I had taken. The reality of this fall in a gym, no less, was harsh and irreverently defiant of my previous 20 years of climbing. Back in 1996 on El Capitan, a microcam levered out when I weighted my etriers, and immediately, with the flat pop of a gun, all of the brass nuts below it simultaneously blew out of the rock. A tiny RP, the width of a nickel, stopped my fall after 40 feet. So, in other words, this guy took a 40-foot fall on El Cap. Um, the details are not really too important, but oh damn, that's like pretty far to fall. Dangling unscathed, I was face to face with my belayer, nervously laughing and inhaling the acrid smell like gunpowder that engulfed our perch 2,000 feet up the Muir Wall. Then, while attempting a first clean ascent of Swoop Gimp in Zion 1998, I ripped a hook from the soft sandstone and fell to within 4 inches of the ledge that would have rammed my hips up into my armpits. Not to mention the 1,000-foot, 45-degree snow slope in the Olympic Mountains, where as a teenager I lost my footing. Without an ice axe, I slid while digging my fingers into the late summer snow. I hit the black boulder field at a mad speed and somersaulted through the air to land flat on my back and my father's external frame pack. Stunned and helmetless, I stared up at the blue August sky and inventoried my body, exhaling when I found nothing more than blood on my fingers, elbows, and knees. So this guy had some scrapes for sure. He was out there, he was adventuring, and stuff happens, right? And hopefully the things that happen are not so serious that we can't just learn from them. And like he had this career as where was it? Blah. Oh, as the Outward Bound Wilderness Safety and Training Director to assess accidents and to do these sort of postmortems on accidents, prevent them from going forward. And he had had his own share. And then there were all the moments that went right, but could have easily gone wrong. And every climber knows and can think back on those times as well. On Astroman in 2009, I found myself run out, pumped, meaning tired, and looking down at the last piece of gear far below and to my right. I knew if I fell, I would drop 30 feet and then pendulum harshly to the right, dragging the rope across a sharp flake. If the rope cut, I would have fallen 700 feet into the manzanita bushes and talus. To escape my predicament, I had to ease up onto a high, tiny ledge with my left toe, a move I could probably not reverse, while pulling on sloping edges with my fingers. And then what? Eventually, I just plowed into the ugly heart of my fear, high stepped and shifted my weight up over my foot before spanning far to my right and to regain the flake. My body barn doored recklessly. That's like when you just flop around. I pulled back against the flake with sweaty hands and pasted my feet, then gunned for the anchors. So I've had a few experiences like this as well, where I was in a situation, much lower grade type stuff, where if I fell, I was going to break everything, but I was very confident in my ability with the climbing that I'm not going to fall. But yeah, I think, you know, many climbers can relate to this on some level that it's dangerous. You find yourself in situations where, you know, I've climbed the first like 30, 40 feet of a climb without putting any gear in. So I've been, that high off the ground with nothing between me and the ground that would stop my fall. So, but everything went right, you know? After 3 days, when I could get out of bed, sit in a chair without throwing up, and shuffle to the bathroom, I was released and wheeled out of the hospital, my back brace, designed to create traction, pressed firmly into my sternum and pubic bone in the front and just above the break in my back. Before we returned home, I demanded that Monica take me to see a personal injury lawyer to sue the guy who had been belaying me. He had failed to call, visit, or send any signal that he had done anything other than tuck his tail and run. I could barely walk, but with my hand on my wife's shoulder, shuffled through the lobby to meet with two lawyers who assured us that we had a powerful case against the man who had dropped me. We just had to find him. So my wife and friends harassed the gym to get his information. After much effort, we were given his name, Nir, an Israeli address, and an international phone number. and a local cell number that to a phone that rang and rang until a message mechanically stated this phone has not been set up for voicemail. So that's kind of a nightmare, right? Is this guy is not even an American? Uh, who knows where he could be? Lily says, I'm so conflicted between my admiration of climbing and also how risky the sport can be. Again, a lot of the risk can be mitigated, but there's luck involved too. I feel like, you could take someone like Alex Honnold or whatever, who's like free soloed thousands and thousands of routes. And it's like, don't tell me that's all skill. Like, he survived somewhat. It's luck too, right? And so many people like don't survive and it has nothing to do with skill. It's just like they got unlucky, and then someone of the same skill level, they survived because they got lucky. Like you know, I had an ex-boyfriend who was a climber who was also involved in that accident that I had, and it was really his fault that it happened. That's the other part of the story, but like I should have been more aware, whatever. But he believed that he was like a total risk taker, and he believed he was always unscathed because he was skilled, and he never appreciated that there's a huge luck element to all of this stuff too, and that, you know, very experienced climbers and mountaineers die all the time, and others survive who are, like, more reckless because they got lucky and it had nothing to do with skill. So oh, this is a great comment. Banana says, reminds me of Jonathan Haidt's theory as to why Gen Z is so anxious. Risk avoidance gives you no moments to build self confidence and tenacity. Yeah, I really like that. Um, Existential commenting the passage before, a lot of men escape into these kinds of pursuits and eschew connections with loved ones. Good, he realized this. Yeah, better late than never. Uh, Existential says, I saw an unfortunate case of a guy who luckily survived 2 or 3 harrowing wilderness mountain rescues and had this attitude that he could do anything. Eventually, his luck ran out and he died lost. Yeah, exactly. I think you have to appreciate that sometimes like luck is on your side, but you have to like mitigate the risk at every juncture that you can. And still stuff can happen, but if you're not being cavalier and, like, taking unnecessary chances, it's like with driving, right? Like, you could be driving down you drive on the highway and you see people just driving, like, totally insane. Yeah, they're way more likely to have an accident, and if you're driving normally, you're way less likely to have an accident. Oh, no, there's a wasp in here. Um, okay, if that becomes a problem, I'll have to pause, but yeah, let's keep going. In my absence, my two young daughters had decorated a bed for me in our family room, piling it on had decorated a bed for me in our family room, piling on it every pillow in the house, the book I'd been reading, my toothbrush, and a stack of plastic bags because they'd heard I'd been throwing up. With Monica's help, I stiffly levered into the bed and lay rigid and exhausted, staring at the ceiling and inhaling the smell of our home. I hadn't seen my girls yet. Monica didn't want them to see me in the hospital like that. When a friend dropped them off, they came quietly in the door, and I could see Stella, my 4-year-old, studying me, looking for something, blood maybe. River, our 2-year-old, gently crawled up beside me and rubbed my head with her tiny hand. How cute. Then, without a word, she cautiously put her head on my chest and rested her arm on my stomach. Later, on the way upstairs, after we'd eaten ice cream and read books together, I heard Stella ask my wife, Mama, is this a dream? Oh, got chills again. In her 4-year-old brain, I think she had convinced herself that accident plus hospital plus absence equals death. So I think it's a good idea that they didn't bring the kids to the hospital to see the dad. That is something that could definitely kids don't need that. They don't need that, and I think it can only harm them in that situation. Yeah, I agree, they're precious. Oh, this is a great anecdote or yeah, story. I'm not religious, but it reminds me of the story about the guy in the flood praying to God who rejected the boat, plane, etc. And when he died, he asked God why he hadn't saved him, and God was like, "I sent a boat, a plane, etc." Yeah, it's a great story, joke, whatever you call it. I continued to have nightmares, seeing Near's 5 o'clock shadow and clueless expression as he stared up at me. The love I felt for our community as they rallied to support us felt incongruous with my smoldering anger, which grew hotter as each day passed. I couldn't walk more than 20 feet without excruciating pain. The first time I tried to sit and eat dinner with my girls, I drank my water too fast and coughed and then screamed and slammed my fist on the table from a sudden shot of pain in my back. I'm just looking at this wasp that's nearby. In those moments, my anger toward him raged. As the days passed and my wife continued to sponge bathe me and bring me my drugs, my girls kept easing up into my bed to read books and I softened. I didn't have the energy or desire to pursue an international personal injury claim. I just wanted to heal. But my wife kept saying, "Call him." Reluctantly, I would again dial the number and get the same message. Then one morning, the screen of my phone showed an incoming call and the local number I'd been dialing relentlessly for the last week. I answered. "Who is this?" he asked. "The guy you were climbing with on Saturday," I said. There was an eerie silence, and I just knew he was going to hang up. But instead, he asked how I was and if I could walk. He asked if I needed anything. I told him I wanted to meet with him. He said that he was leaving the country soon to return to Israel and asked if we could meet in the next half hour. He entered our house silently, shook my wife's hand, and then came to the bedside and sat next to me. I didn't speak, nor did he. It was quiet except for the plastic ticking of my back brace that came with each inhalation. He couldn't look at my wife or me, and so continued staring into his lap. My wife got him a glass of water. With great effort, he looked at each of us and said he was sorry. He couldn't speak without his eyes welling, and his words became constricted. Eventually, he explained that he wanted to pay our medical bills, but that he could not do it in one payment. He would have to make several payments over the course of the next year. We decided to meet again and then watch from the window. We decided to meet again and then watch from the window by my bed as he crossed our street and walked toward town. Monica said, "I think he might be worse off than you." I like real that really resonates with me like so much. I understand this guy's side of things, having been, partly responsible for someone falling off a cliff. I did not want to see her after that. And I know she was okay. She was okay. She walked away. Um And I remember actually after that, when I did see her, she said something similar to me. She was like, "I think this is harder on you than it was on me." And because I don't think she realized what had happened. Um, and, you know, it was only by a miracle that she survived, but I don't think that she appreciated that because she didn't know that much about climbing. She was new to climbing. And I was an experienced climber and I know what happened. And I don't think that she got it. She knew she had a little sprained ankle, but not so bad that she couldn't even walk on it. She could walk, and here I am, like 9 years later, just able to climb on a rope. Like it totally tore up my world. And she walked away and kept climbing. Like so I really think it's like I feel like I have survivor guilt even though this woman didn't, die. The guilt of causing harm to another person doesn't heal the same as a wound. Very true, and I think, I had a mentor in the wake of my own accident who was like, "You're carrying this around as if she died, and she didn't, and you need to, like, treat the situation for what it is and let that go." and I wasn't able to do that. I feel like even the other day climbing and seeing myself climbing, I'm like, "Why should I be able to do this and be happy when this essentially killed this girl?" But it that's not what actually happened, and I think to me, because I know that could have very easily been the situation, I know I and I think what made me stop climbing after that was I knew I could not live with that if I did kill someone accidentally. I would obviously never kill someone intentionally, but I couldn't live with myself. I would have to KMS. I just couldn't do it. If I knew and dealing with that person's family and stuff, I wouldn't wanna live. I would not want to. I would not wanna be alive if I know that I had accidentally killed someone. Of course, people do, it happens, like, people accidentally kill people in car accidents and stuff. I just I don't know. I truly, you know, knock on all the wood, like, I just that's what why that scenario changed things so much for me was I just know in my heart I could not stay alive if I knew I had killed someone. So, yeah, ignorance is bliss. Definitely wasn't her case, for sure. I called the lawyers and told them to void our contract, but this is also, like, why this whole article is just giving me chills. It's so powerful, like, the the interactions between these 2 men. A few days later, Near showed up with a contract that he had drafted and a wallet bulging with $100 bills. He had withdrawn all he could from his bank account, was going to pay the rest in monthly installments over the next 18 months. Monica informed Near that upon reviewing our insurance policy, we had a more clear understanding of what the accident was going to cost, at least $4,000. Okay, that's not that bad. We showed him the paperwork, and he said he could not give us what we were asking and insisted that we accept the original offer. It was spiraling into a shrewd business deal, and all of the humanity that had been infused before was leaking out. All that remained were 2 men negotiating soullessly. He left the room to make some calls and returned with a small concession toward our request. "This is all I can do," he said without looking up. "This alone is going to be very hard for me." "I know it will be hard," I said, "but it's hard not being able to be the husband I want to be and not being able to pick up my daughters." Near looked at his lap and said quietly, "My grandfather lived through 3 concentration camps. He lived so that I could live. I aim to live a good life. I am sorry. I will give you what you are asking for." Then he stood and shook my hand for the last time. Weeks went by with no word from him. Meanwhile, I practiced walking, leaning on ski poles, and trying to make it to the end of our lane, but fearing that I might not be able to make it back if the pain set in too strongly. Once I had to lie down and wait for my wife to come find me. I stared up at the sky, knowing that I couldn't move even if I wanted to. The pain was unrelenting. The hospital bills started to flood the mailbox. Monica had embraced all possible modalities of healing by scheduling massage, acupuncture, craniosacral treatments, and brain spotting therapy sessions, as well as buying funky poultices that smelled like death. The cash that Near had given us was long gone. I was disheartened and accepted that we might never hear from him again. A month later, my wife got an email from Near with details on how to collect his first payment from Western Union. "Now where's your faith in humanity?" she asked me. 9 months after my accident, I continued to heal. I hiked, I surfed, I meditated, I ran trails, but I could not stir the appetite for climbing. It's amazing that 9 months later, he was able to hike, surf, and trail run. But yeah, how do it felt I still felt it still felt dangerous and absurd, but also as if I had lost a dear friend or painfully fallen out of love. How could I let go of something that had given me so much? So I talked about that a little bit in the video that I had too, is just I felt a lot of grief because I loved climbing was my life. I like moved to live at the cliff. I wanted to be a guide. I climbing was something I had given my whole life to, then to lose it, it's really like a total feeling of grief and this feeling of falling out of love. It was more like, this thing that I loved had died. Monica and I had proposed to one another on the top of Mount Aspiring in New Zealand after simul climbing the Southwest Ridge. That route remains as one of the most memorable experiences in my life. We had a 24-hour high pressure window and took off from the French Ridge hut under a starry night to embark on 5,000 feet of climbing. Amazing. We each had a small sleeping bag, 2 liters of water, a tube of instant coffee that came out like toothpaste, some sliced meat and cheese, all stuffed into tiny packs that fit perfectly between our shoulder blades. This is like the I love reading about climbing stuff like this. I just love this. So it's so cool. We hit the ridge proper by morning and started simul climbing up firm snow. Below us, the glacier transitioned through all the hues of dawn. We moved in unison, swinging one axe, then the other, followed by 2 quick stabs with the front points of each crampon. We continued up through technical ice and wiggled through rotten sections that sent plates of fractured ice skating off the ridge below us. Moving nonstop, we only paused to exchange ice screws. And in those moments when we looked at each other, a softness and warmth stood in brilliant contrast to the cold, daunting reality of alpine climbing. What a beautiful description of Monica and I proposed to one another to this is so it's so beautiful. We summited, proposed to each other, then traversed the ridge, eventually stumbling into a distant hut where there was only room for us to sleep under the kitchen table. We'd been climbing for 20 hours. Damn. A local who had seen us on the ridge brought us tea and said, "Good on ya," while we lay stupefied and proud in our bags. My fondness for the way that climbing taps into the human spirit remained. But these memories were now shadowed by fear. As a father and husband, how could I justify returning to a sport that had come so close to taking my life? So it's a good question to be asking too, especially when you have a responsibility as a father and a husband. You have some responsibility to not live selfishly, and if you feel like climbing is dangerous, then maybe you need to reevaluate its presence in your life. And especially the fact that this guy got hurt in a gym, that's like the safest environment. He just made a miscalc, but it could happen to anybody. Monica was in contact with Near. I was not. Every once in a while, she would drop one sentence updates. Near's serving his mandatory military service as a medic. Near's attending group counseling sessions. Near wrote to wish Stella well for her first day of kindergarten. Monica was also emailing him updates on my progress. Near sent payment, each payment on time, paid for the handling fees, and then sent one massive check that concluded our agreement well ahead of schedule. Monica was right. I had doubted him. When I was in the hospital, I'd targeted Near for diminishing my trust, so I was skeptical of his efforts to restore it. I'd been in therapy for getting dropped, while he was in therapy to reckon with the responsibility of dropping me. Which is worse, to fall or to watch the fall and take responsibility for it? I knew then that Near and I would be forever tethered by this experience. It was time to write to him. Lily says, as a single person, things like this haven't occurred to me before. This is super interesting. And Existential says, it's one thing when you're single, TBH. Yeah, and you don't have that. Everyone has people in their life, though, that they feel a responsibility to, who would have to take care of them if something happened to them. So, single or in a relationship or whatever. Yeah. Well, we can all probably relate to it on some level. Near, you were true. So he writes to this guy. Near, you were true to your word in a manner that is rare today. I agree. I mean, this guy could have just totally ignored him and vanished, and he kind of did stood up and did the right thing. I just want you to know that I harbor no resentment. Mistakes happen and we are all human. I was just worried that I might not heal, leaving my life forever altered and compromised. If my worries ever came across as resentment or anger, I would like to apologize. I am recovering each day and finding things that I can do before that I couldn't. Somewhat like rediscovering life. Ooh, I'm getting a little emotional. This is just it's beautiful, really. This whole experience has allowed me to witness your compassion. You are an amazing person, near. The world is in want of more people like you. So he was able to really find this deep, you know, I've just like lost my, yeah. And he was able to um find this deep forgiveness of this guy. This is like Existential says, with small kids, it's a different kind of responsibility. I don't know. This dude could have easily abandoned them with these bills or killed him. Luckily, he was a stand up guy. True, true, true. What is climbing if not the crystallization of human trust? Trust in oneself, trust in others, trust that it will work out. Near's integrity restored that trust. This is so this is so powerful to me, really. I started to remember some of my dreams as a climber, ones that were free of the intensity that I'd been steeped in for so long. To take my girls up the third flat iron, to return with Monica to the Bugaboos or the Diamond for our 20th anniversary, to someday be the old guy who has found a way to maintain his love for the craft throughout the years. I could not walk away from 20 years of climbing. It had always shown me my best self. It was the solace that quieted my mind. My desire to end the addiction shifted to a desire to reclaim the affinity for the purity of movement. Oh, I love it. For the totality of the experience, for the partnerships that climbing brings. Sometimes it's not until you start eating that you realize how hungry you are. Did I tell you guys this was well written or what? Like, I just love, oh my gosh, just the way this is this guy could write a book. This is so good. Monica and I hatched an idea to return to Indian Creek with our girls. For 15 years, I had been going to Indian Creek every fall and spring, vagabonding under the shadow of the Bridger Jack Towers. If climbing in one of the most beautiful places on earth with my wife and my girls did not spark the fire again, then it was truly over. We left Boulder and headed west despite a foreboding November forecast of high winds and rain. After an evening sitting around the fire and sleeping in our family tent, we woke to clear skies and a low morning light that illuminated the highest escarpments in a fleeting amber glow. We drove to Donnelly Canyon. What was once a dirt pullout and then a small dirt lot was now a 50-car paved lot with fresh lines of paint. We hiked to the base, and the girls quickly set up shop and started rubbing colored sandstone rocks on boulders to create a fine powder, which they rubbed on their lips, cheeks, and eyelids. Cute, cute, but also I don't know, it's just funny. Okay. The spirit was slow to return. Monica encouraged me to get out of my head and simply feel it in my body. On a tough tips lie back, I felt the joy of moving vertically surge within me. Tips lie back is like very fun climbing. The route was at my limit, and each move felt like my last. I felt the tenuous balance between doubt and belief, where my body continued to prove me wrong, my mind wrong. The pattern continued doubt, belief, and then I grabbed the anchor chains. I looked across the valley and down at my girls as they scraped their rocks, their heads cocked and intent. Then I heard the sirens echoing off the canyon walls and saw a climber running down from super cracked buttress to intercept a Park Service truck. More sirens, more trucks. A crew pulled a litter out from the back of one truck and headed up the trail with it. I hiked down to see if I could help. A ranger asked if I could find the climbers who were parked in the middle of the lot because a helicopter was en route. I hiked up in search of the owners of a van with Alberta plates and a pickup with Oregon plates. When I returned to the lot, the injured climber's wife cried out, "I feel like you're going to tell me he's dead." Then they brought this quiet, packaged body down the trail and loaded him on the helicopter. The helicopter lifted off and sent tumbleweeds flying. I didn't know if he was going to live or die. A woman took the injured man's wife in her arms. I walked slowly back up the trail to where my family was waiting, and Stella asked if she could put makeup on my face. I sat her on my lap, and she held the side of my head with her hand before I felt her cool index finger spreading fine powder on my lips. "Close your eyes, Dada." Then I felt her finger gently anointing my eyelids open, and there she was, my precious daughter, with her radiant blue eyes so innocent of the world around us. There we were in the desert, alive, gazing up at the autumn sky. I held her, feeling the ephemeral nature of a child's weight. Yo, damn. Oh my god, it's so I could read a whole book of this. This is so beautifully written, and it just oh my gosh, it just captures much, so much. Like, so many of these some of these paragraphs were just, like, unreal, like, just beautiful. Truly, like, great writing. I happen to, like, love reading this, like, adventure mountain writing or whatever, and this is just as good as anything I've read. Wow. Just, like, this is so I could not walk away from 20 years of climbing. It had always shown me my best self. It was the solace that quieted my mind. My desire to end the addiction shifted to a desire to reclaim the affinity for the purity of movement, for the totality of the experience, for the partnerships that climbing brings. Sometimes it's not until you start eating that you realize how hungry you are. Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree. He should pick up writing. I don't know, he's a teacher, so I'm not sure, like, what yeah, the ending with the kids and yet another accident. I mean, this whole thing, he's talking about all these accidents and near misses and things, and it ends with another accident, but he's not part of that accident. He's on this experiencing this other thing. It's sort of and, experiencing this thing beautifully with, like, the his children who are just coming into, consciousness of the world, and it's like this, like the open door, passing from one world to the next and things, like, kids are just starting to experience consciousness, and he's rediscovering his love of climbing through his kids. You've read many emotional, impactful articles on the stream before, but this one takes the cake. Yeah, you like I'm literally like misting up here. Thank you for listening. The ending was stunning. Maybe he's already honed his skill a lot. I don't remember if he said what he teaches. So I don't know what he teaches either, but it's gorgeous writing. Um, and like I said, it's sort of like a slice of life type thing where it's like, this is life. It's not, I also like the way he structured this piece of writing where it's like, it's kind of wanders sort of all over the place. Like, it's like, oh, he's talking about his accident, and then he's talking, you know, going back in history, and then he's, sort of talking about the present and the future. And it's like, that is how life is. And that's how, when we experience like trauma, is how things are. It's like, oh, we're in the past. Now we're back in the present, now we're way back in the past. What's the context of all this stuff? um what's the bigger picture? Now we're focused on a little detail, so I think, from as a piece of writing, it had that, like, it mirrored the way we actually experience life. Like, we don't experience life as like one narrative that just goes along. We experience life as, and when we self reflect about our lives. Yeah. Oh, a one-shot entry says, "I think I found him. He teaches English literature at Colorado College." So there you go. Um, so yeah, thank you. Amazing writer. I totally agree. Thank you all for sharing that and listening with me. And letting me vent a little bit about my experiences, how they relate to this, because this is definitely something that, reading this when I read it, and again today reading it. By the way, this article just came out. It's in Climbing Magazine. Just came out in May, but I do think he's written about it before because when I looked him up, it seemed like he had written about it before. But so I'm not sure if he said when this accident took place. I don't think he mentions it. Must have been some years ago because he's apparently quite like healed up now. But um, yeah. Oh, thank you, Lee. That's very thoughtful. Hello, sisters and lesser children of women. I'm so glad I didn't miss a stream. How is everyone doing? We always appreciate you here. Thank you for your donation to the stream. Um, yeah, I think just sort of processing that and like, I think the climbing world is pretty unique. People come to it to find different things. Um, and it could be a very spiritual hobby for people. Like it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, you're challenging your fears, you're challenging your ability to trust people. Those of us who have difficulty trusting people for one reason or another, it tests all of that. And to trust yourself. I mean, that is the best part of this hobby. I don't know another thing like it where you really have to just completely trust in yourself. And what would raise your self-esteem more than just like having total trust in yourself? It's a very good feeling when it all aligns like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else that you want to talk about this afternoon? Um I'm here for a few more minutes. At least we can go till about 4:30 my time. A few more minutes. Or let's see, let's go to an hour and a half. um, so we can go about 13 more minutes. So anything you guys want to talk about? Yeah, if you're new to the stream, usually we do like a few minutes of just chit chatting at the end. Really encourage you guys to make sure that you're drinking water. It's been pretty warm here. So as summer keeps going on, want to make sure we stay hydrated. It's key to a good life. Existential says, as much as the army totally sucked, it also taught me to trust myself and that a lot of limits I thought I had were just mental. Yo, great comment. Yes, a lot of I am realizing that too. Um, that I put a lot of limitations on myself, like I think yeah, I just read a book about a woman who rode her bike across America in, like, under a month, and it was so crazy, and it really, it really opened my eyes to just, a lot of the limitations we place on ourselves, we place it on ourselves, like, it's not really real, and we can actually push ourselves way harder than we are, you know? Yes, we're so much more capable, and you don't find that out until you challenge yourself, you know? Next collaboration stream, I'm not sure when that's gonna be. Um, Lily says, "You broke the 10-pound bicep curl plateau." I did, I think, Lily, you did 20 pounds, right? And I'm just mind blown on that. I'm having a little pain right here, this tendon in my elbow. I did bicep curls today, and I think that's really the only thing. I did 8 pounds today. I did one set of 10 with 8 pounds, and I just want to be kind of careful with it. So I'm probably going to back off bicep curls. I did I did my heaviest assisted pull-ups today, and I felt muscles like, I think it's just the, I don't know, paraspinal muscles on the top. I was like, "Dude, I'm not sure I've used those muscles ever." I don't know, like, probably have used them from climbing, but, like, it was like, "Whoa, I have not been using those muscles." Do you eat differently when you're training versus regular routine? I feel like I'm always training. I'm always trying to improve my diet. My diet's not very good, and that's, I think, a big limiter for my fitness personally. But yeah, I'm trying to get enough protein, enough calories just in general. Because sometimes I do lose my appetite throughout the month with my like hormone fluctuations and stuff. So just try to eat enough. To be gaining weight. Yeah, maybe it was my traps that I was feeling. It was like here, these muscles. So food posts look delicious. I haven't been posting too much food stuff. I want to get back into posting food stuff because, like, when I do the what I eat in a day or whatever, I eat so much better on those days because I'm like, I'm doing it for the internet. Like, I think on regular days, I don't eat that good. But my goal food-wise is to get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day and 5 servings of, like, protein-rich foods. Um, so, yeah, and I've been doing, thanks, Lily. I've been doing the I've been doing cucumber, bell pepper, and cherry or whatever, grape tomato salads, the little bit of Greek dressing on a baguette. So good, so good. Um Yeah, and it's not like, it hurt when I did that, it was just like, "Whoa, hello." But I did a set. I'll post it later, I forget what the weight was, but I was like, "Let me, like, really jack it up and just see how many reps I can do," and I think I did, like, 6 reps, and that felt like my 6 rep maximum, whatever it was. But I hadn't done, pull-ups in, I don't know, about a week and a couple days or something, but I've been climbing, so. And I swam. I had actually an incredible workout today before the stream. Um, I went, to the gym and I did 23 minutes on the treadmill. I did 8 minutes run, 15-minute walk. Then I did the weight room for 45 minutes with 5 sets of pull-ups. Um, and then I went swimming, and I normally swim cold. First of all, I haven't even been swimming. I took 2 months off of swimming, and this is only my 2nd time back, but I normally just, like, arrive at the gym and I warm up a little bit, like, I'll do, like, some stretches at the pool, but I'll just swim, and this, like, I was so warmed up from having run and, did the weight room and stuff, that when I went to the p it was, like, the best I've ever swam in my life. Not the fastest, but I just felt amazing, and I really I wanna do a triathlon. I feel like if I sign up for once though, 1, it'll, like, I'll jinx myself and I won't do it. The other thing is I would need a wetsuit and they're like $600 or whatever. I'm like, "I don't have that." But I don't wanna swim in a lake in Connecticut without a wetsuit. I just don't wanna do that. And I'm like, "Do I wanna spend $600 on something that I very well might use one time?" Um Yeah, and the water just felt so. I don't know, it was like it's like I had one of those, someone there's a word for it, but, like, I don't know, an integrative moment or something, like, where you feel like just the world is aligned, you know? There's a word for that, but, like, you just feel like euphoria, basically. I was just like, "I'm in the pool, I felt good, everything felt good." That's very flattering. Are you guys excited for the Olympics coming up? I guess I'm kind of excited to see the climbing and stuff like that. I don't know. I think the last Summer Olympics I got, subscription on TV or whatever so I could watch it, but I remember in many years ago, when you had cable, that it would be on, like, 8 different channels at the same time, like, 24/7 for 2 weeks, and it was just the most amazing experience to just, like, click on the TV and you could just watch all these different Olympic sports. It just I don't know, I know the Olympics are, like, problematic because it's owned by a bunch of, like, princes or whatever, and they, like, exploit third world countries and stuff, but, like, from a uniting people, like, it's like something the whole world again, problematic because there are people in the world who are, like, going through hell right now, right? They don't care about the Olympics, but to an extent, I do believe, um, that the Olympics, uh, can really unite people, and I think sports in general sports and art are the things that will heal the world and bring peace to the world. I love watching the Olympics too. I love watching the sports that you don't, like, normally ever see, like watching, like, dressage or something, or whatever, like, random sports, like in the Winter Olympics, you watch curling. I don't know if I think in the last Summer Olympics that were there men competing? There was the guy who competed in the women's weightlifting, Laurel Hubbard, I believe that, but I don't know. There were a few actually. I think there was a guy who competed in, like, archery or something. I don't know where all that stands. I feel like it's kind of progressed in the right direction in the last few years, but I don't really know. I haven't really been following that much of that kinda stuff lately. So, yeah, I don't know, any sports that you guys like to watch? Gymnastics is always kinda fun, but then it's, like, also dark. Lily says, "I'm excited to watch track and field and springboard diving." Oh, yeah, diving's so fun to watch too. Yeah. That's something I always wanted to try, especially yeah, springboard diving. I don't think I'd wanna try that 10 meters up or whatever. No, thank you. Uh, the Winter Olympics are trippy, like, futuristic or something. Oh, I definitely could see that. That's very funny. Figure skating. Yeah, I love watching, like, the ice dancing. Those people just, like, have the most incredible physiques. Like, to me, ice dancer physique is just a dream. Gymnastics, triathlon. I used to watch men's figure skating. Men's figure skating is the best. I love when the men are just like they just go for it with being really, like, graceful, and they don't like, this kind of stuff. Like, they don't hold back on like, they don't, like, try to be so masculine, they, like, just let themselves be graceful. So, yeah, that's all fun. That's all fun. What a nice stream. I'm really glad you guys joined me. Women's ice hockey has gotten really great in the last decade. Taylor Heiss, I don't know who that is, but that sounds cool. Yeah. I had a roommate in college who played ice hockey. Oh, yeah, I'm just excited to watch all of it. I I think that, like, Lily referred to me as a multi-sport athlete or something, and I was like so ever since then, I've been thinking to myself, "Hey, yeah, I am a multi-sport athlete. That's pretty cool." Um, oh, this is a very interesting comment. Existential, men can be very graceful, muscle equals grace, and men have more. Masculinity is cheating them. Yeah, very true. I felt that with climbing, like, where, like, the stronger you get, the more graceful and fluid you can be, and the more like a ballerina you can be, like, you know, you're like because you're strong, like, it takes the strength to do that. So, yeah, definitely. Masculinity is cheating men. Are you a The Cutting Edge fan? Are you referring to that is that a that's a movie? I don't think I've seen it, but I think I know what you're talking about, if that's what you're talking about. Hey, Adrian, by the way. So, what's coming up? I'm gonna try to make some more videos. I guess that's what's coming up. So just watch them if you want. No pressure. And what else? I guess I'll be back streaming um next Friday. I don't know, it's possible we'll do video game this weekend. We have fun doing that. And I don't know, I just enjoyed spending this afternoon with you, reading that very beautiful piece of writing that just really uh, blew me away, truly. And I mean, I know for me, it's very like there's a personal element to it because I was involved in a climbing accident, but I still feel like there's so much just beautiful humanity in that piece of writing. Hey, Kai, you did miss the topic. Two demerits for you. JK, how's it going? Lol. I'm stealing Existential's reply to you. Can we get a Hitman stream sometime in the future? I love it. Hitman is like my favorite game of all time. I'm not amazing at it. I haven't played it in a really long time either. I wanna watch you and B kill people for money. It is for money. Sometimes you forget that you're doing it for money, but, yeah, Hitman, my favorite video game. Well, I think I'm gonna let you all go. Um, Kai says, "Surprised to learn Hitman is your favorite. I would not expect that." What I love about Hitman is just the possibilities. You can do every level 100 different times, 100 different ways. It's, like, so creative, you know? And the other thing I love about it is that you have to be very patient and just wait and observe, and I'm kind of bad at that, so it sort of, like, makes me practice doing that. But and I just also love, like, I think the artwork's really nice. I really like it. And the environments, the fact that you're always at some rich person's mansion, but then also, like, there's, like, the background that's, like, very seedy. Like, they're all, like, rich, evil people who, like, they're involved in these seedy underworlds and stuff. I think Hitman is very reflective of our world, and I think it also just changed my opinion of the world. Now when some rich famous person dies, I'm like, "Yeah, that was not an accident, that was not an S word," like, there's more going on than we plebes know about, you know? So, yeah. Anyways, so good to briefly see everyone. I'm working nights now, so I can't make a lot of streams. I still love you all indoors community. That's so nice. Yeah, I've been sort of like, I haven't been on like the Discord and stuff. I've just been kind of taking a little break from everything. I've just kind of like I said, I think I said this at the beginning of the stream, like, I've just been very, like, roller coaster with my emotional well-being and stuff, and I've had some high highs and I had some low lows, and I was feeling, pretty, like, sad and stuff for a while and just chaotic, and so I needed that was, like, last Friday, I just needed a week off, and, so it's nice for people to understand that also. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to work on some more videos, hopefully be back next Friday. That's always the plan. Possibly I would love to make this request happen. I love to take requests. I don't get too many requests, but when I do, I like to try to make them happen. Um Thanks. No shame in taking a breather. Yeah, appreciate that very much. It's nice to know also, like, I can take a week off and you guys will still show up the next week. It's like, I'm like, oh, I feel like if I'm gone for a little while, people will like forget that I exist or something. Um, and I like to be here every Friday because um thank you, appreciate that again. I just like the consistency, and also, like, I never wanna stop doing these streams because it's really helped me with, like, public speaking and having confidence and just speaking off the cuff and stuff, which is, like, very powerful skill to have, so I'd never wanna, like, lose that, so I'll probably just be here, you know? Um, Happy Pride Month, love that, started by a woman, we love that. Gotta take care of you. I'm always trying to, like, promote self-care, especially for the women's. We gotta do our self-care right. So, yeah, there you have it. If you guys want to support this channel, the best way to do it is to leave a comment. Um Carla says, "Thank you for letting us into your climbing experience. Really appreciate you saying that very much." Yeah, I know I thought about doing this stream that I would maybe like go into more detail about exactly what happened. It's pretty like esoteric uh, accident. I've described it to climbers and they're like, "How did that happen?" Like it's very bizarre. So um, I thought about like diagramming it out, drawing exactly what happened. But yeah, you got the idea. Gave it to you in some bits and pieces, and yeah, I think I wanna keep working on this narrative of redemption, this redemption arc for myself, of trying to come back to it and have a positive experience and show other people that that's possible if you've been through something, you can come back. Maybe it's just take some time. So, thank you for being vulnerable. Thanks for listening, Lily. I always appreciate your support. You're an awesome person, and yeah. And da 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 da. Don't fall into the social media trap of churning out content until you collapse. Well, I think I put out one video every 3 months or something, so hopefully I'm I'm gonna avoid that. All right. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you soon. If I'm going to do a video game stream, I'll try to post it at least a few hours in advance, sometime over the weekend. But usually we do it like in the afternoon ish. So that would be pretty cool. Oh, that's so yes, it is. It is wonderful. I really appreciate that. That's really nice. It does help me mentally. So yeah. All right. Again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you to Chris Carithers for writing this beautiful article that we read. Oh, yeah. If you want to really support the channel, refresh this. I'm going to end the stream right now. Refresh, come back, leave a comment. One thing that you took away from it, something you learned. You could just write cool video, whatever, anything. Comments really help me. It doesn't even matter about the channel. They help me. So leave a comment and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.